Hey everyone, and welcome to VidCon Now Asia. This is 2021 and this is part 2. My name is Jasper Donat. Last episode we talked to Kurt Hugo Schneider about breaking Asia. This week we are going behind the Great Firewall of China to explore the world's most populous country, second largest economy in the world, which also arguably boasts the world's most competitive video market, with multiple players reaching hundreds of millions of users every day. We're going to look quite deeply into that. Also, last week on VidCon Now out of the US, they focused on live streaming. And if you watched it, you'll have seen that China was really used as best in class. And they also lead in mobile entertainment and e-commerce. So hopefully some interesting facts and figures will be thrown your way this week. But many cultural barriers do exist, including language and law. And so working with our friends at Collab Asia, we're going to take a look at who are the main media platforms, how to work with them from outside China, what genres and formats are hot, what are not, who are the big local creators, but also which international creators are cutting it in China from overseas, and most importantly, how. To do this, we're talking today to Rafi, the CEO of Collab Asia in Greater China. He's been working with influencers and musicians in China for many years and is one of the leading lights in this space. Rafi, welcome to VidCon Asia Now. How are you doing? Let's just hear a little bit about you, your background. You have been around for quite a long time. So yeah, give us a little bit of an intro to who is Rafi.
Thank you, Jasper. Almost as long as you. You're definitely ahead of me. But thank you for the intro. It's great to be here. So I am the current CEO of Collab Asia Greater China. I've actually been living and working in Hong Kong since the early days of actually before YouTube was a thing. I've been here for 15 years, and for the last 3 years, head of Collab Asia's Greater China office. So I've been in the digital entertainment space since 2007, and in the last 5-6 years, really been focusing on YouTube, and then obviously given the fact that I'm based here in Hong Kong, the gateway to China, as it were. I've saw the opportunity in China and also the opportunity that YouTube presents to China. So I thought, okay, this is a really good opportunity. And so since I basically have joined Collab Asia in January 2018, so it's been 3 years, I've really been focused on the opportunity that the quote unquote Great Firewall presents. So in other words, there's a huge video market in China, which we're going to talk about today. And there's the global, outside of China, global market. And because of the technical limitations of the firewall, I guess it's not necessarily easy for people on one side to get to the other. It's not only technical limitation, obviously language and culture is also an issue. But given our presence here, we're sort of one foot in both boats, as it were. So I thought, okay, this is a really cool opportunity to be a trendsetter and basically the first in the world to do stuff like this. There are other people involved. I'm not the only one. Collab Asia is not the only one, but I like to think that we're definitely one of the top in the world for taking global content into the China market and vice versa.
And I mean, it's great to have you today, Rafi, because you not only have you been working with content, but also in this part of the world, you've been really working with a lot of the creators, creatives, and as I said, musicians as well. But let's talk a little bit about Collab Asia. We've got a video to show everyone. So if we can see, let's watch the video first and then come back and just talk a little bit about the company and what you're doing in China and beyond as well.
Всем привет, меня зовут Игорь Войтенко с канала Next Workout.
Ni hao, Billy. What's going on? We're Flab at Midnight. Welcome to our channel.
It is so amazing that our Chinese audience loves the Villains Lair as much as we do.
Hello China, this is the Q. I'm very happy to announce we officially launching Bilibili.
Gangbei Bilibili. Now, leave me to my solitude. Zokai!
Ganbei Bilibili. So Rafi, it's a great
That's
video.
That's a preview to our guests coming up.
Yeah, I should have said actually we are going to be joined. Sorry, I do apologize. We're being joined a little bit later by a group called Patty Cake Productions. They're a production company from the US who are doing some really cool stuff in China. So they will be coming up, and you saw some of their content in that last video. Let's go back to Collab Asia, Rafi. Tell us a little bit the history behind the company, what you're doing, who you're working with. Yeah, what's the story there?
So briefly, Collab Asia is a spin-off of Collab, which, as you may know, is one of the kind of original first-generation MCNs from the West. It's from Los Angeles, and Collab Asia as a separate entity split off in 2017, and they started with a number of Japanese and Korean YouTubers, basically, and ex-Viners and KOLs, and basically set up shop out here. So Eugene and Alan, our co-founders, set up country offices in Korea and Japan, and then they quickly expanded to Southeast Asia as well. But China was still kind of I don't want to say a black hole, but it was a gap in their regional office map. And I've worked with Eugene actually on YouTube stuff for several years, and they said, hey, we would love to expand into the greater China market, including Taiwan and Hong Kong, which can access YouTube, as well as mainland China, which can't. And it was really, I want to say, a match made in heaven. It was perfect timing because I really wanted to take advantage of the developments that have been happening in the mainland market as far as monetization and business model that have accelerated over the last couple of years. So Collab Asia really jumped in with both feet. And the nice thing is, I didn't have to start from scratch. I didn't have to go out and find YouTubers. They already had several thousand top Korean and Japanese YouTubers. That's why in that video, it's not exactly easy to see who's from what country, but you could see we started off with a great base of Japanese, Korean influencers. We've brought Indonesian influencers into China. We've brought, you see there was 2 Ukrainians in there as well as obviously Americans. So yeah, it's a great opportunity, and I hope to talk about more details today.
So you're taking international creators from all over the world into China, and we're gonna meet the Patty Cake team later as one example of that. But are you also taking Chinese creators outside? Yes.
So it's a little bit beyond the scope of today's talk, but that is also a huge opportunity for us because there's now an indigenous population, quote unquote indigenous population of native creators on platforms like Bilibili, Youku, even Weibo, who are making quality content. And now, especially when you have a chance to work with them early, you can say, okay, copyright free music, basically format your content correctly for the global market. And, the sky's the limit. There's about 25 million people in Taiwan who speak Mandarin. There's about 7.5 million people in Hong Kong who can mostly understand Mandarin and or read Chinese. And obviously overseas Chinese, there's probably another 25 million who can understand Mandarin. So you automatically have, even if you're just doing it Chinese, even basically not localizing your content, you can reach the global Chinese speaking market. And then obviously if you add English, you do non-vocal content, sky's the limit. And we've seen some really great Chinese creators getting big on YouTube as well.
So you're advising creators on all things to do with production, music, distribution, brand deals, everything, right?
Yeah, we've I mean, if I had we've done baby steps. I'll put it that way. Obviously, first we started. Okay, hey, you can monetize on this platform in China. Let's build a relationship with them. Let's get into their MCN program, and it sort of evolved. And then on the creator side, and we'll talk about it with Patty Cake, like music rights comes up. So, oh, by the way, can you help us distribute music to the streaming platforms in China, because that's a huge opportunity? Can you help us do music licensing? Can you do brand deals? And it also is kind of a critical mass. So for the first year or two, you don't have enough audience on your Chinese platform to really earn a brand deal. No brand is going to pay you if you have 1,000 fans. But over time, when we get to hundreds of thousands of fans, then suddenly there's YouTubers who might have 1 million fans on YouTube. Their China audience is also big enough to get mainland China brand deals as well. And in China, when you have a huge population, the budgets on brand deals can be, equivalent to what, or actually in some cases better than what you could get even in a market like the US.
So there is a very exciting opportunity for overseas creators going into China. And obviously why we're here today. If the answer was no, it'd be a pretty short session. But let's talk about China itself. Let's kind of drill down into the market, because it is vastly different from pretty much everywhere else in the world. You've prepared a really excellent, very short, excellent presentation. If we could go to the first slide, and maybe you could talk everyone through really what's going on in China from the media platform perspective, and what formats are working and what have you.
Sure. So first of all, on the market size, Jasper mentioned that it is the most competitive market. It's also the biggest market as far as like single market. So 800 plus million viewers of this is short and medium content. I think the stats for this particular one, but it's anywhere between 800 and a billion people consuming digital media through their mobile phones, computers. That's of what YouTube is. So YouTube is around 5 billion a quarter. So, if you include Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, the China size in itself is still smaller than the global market, but it's getting there, and it's only one country, all in one language. So as we mentioned already, we've alluded to the quote unquote great firewall. So what that means is that the established players aren't operating in China. So there's no YouTube, there's no Facebook. We'll show that a little bit who the players are in the next slide. But it's given rise to domestic equivalents. Yeah, there we go. So you can see this is not like a one-to-one. You can't draw a line straight from any one of these Western ones to any of the China ones, because the China ones are all unique. But in, let's say, 1 minute or longer video, YouTube is pretty dominant in the global market. I'm not even sure how to define it, what I want to call it, global or outside of China market. It's definitely not just the West. But, so YouTube dominates in medium length content. Twitch is good for live streaming. Facebook is good for social plus video now. Instagram is good for photos plus short videos. TikTok obviously very dominant in the 15 seconds or shorter. But in China, I think the only one you can directly correlate would be Douyin to TikTok, because they're basically owned by the same company, and they're sort of two versions of the same thing. But like almost all of the Chinese platforms incorporate live streaming. A lot of them are working on social commerce integration. And then things like Tencent, which is the second from the bottom. I should have put English labels on all these logos. They are, it's basically like a Google. So they have everything. They have video, they have social network, they have their own messaging platform, obviously with WeChat. And so their video component in itself is actually multiple video platforms. One thing that most, depending on how like savvy you are, you probably have heard of Weibo, and you think of it, what is normally described in the press as the Twitter of China, which it isn't. It's actually more like the Facebook of China, because it integrates so many more features, but it also has live streaming. It also has commerce. Youku used to be considered the YouTube of China, but it's really been supplanted by a number of other platforms. iQIYI has UGC, but it's also a bit more like Hulu or even Netflix in some ways. So they have like digital first original productions. And then the second one from the top is Baidu's video platform called Haokan. And the top one, Douyu, smart enough to put their URL in English, is actually more like Twitch. So it's the dominant live streaming platform. And the reason why I included it here is because they're actually also getting into, I guess, VOD content. So we're actually working with them as well, even though we don't actually focus on live streaming. And I'll go into some of the details on that as well. So long story short, there are dozens of platforms in China. These are only the top, whatever it is, 7 or 8. And they're all vying for the same eyeballs. And they all have lots of money. And they're all trying to outdo each other with different programs and business models. And it actually is very, very competitive, which is good for the content creator. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the business models as well. So as you guys know, I hope, on YouTube, you get rev share from the ads that are displayed before and during your video. If you're in the partner program, obviously, or for the rights holder who's doing the copyright claiming, you earn the money from the ads. In YouTube, the range is, it's about $1 per 1,000 views, and depending on where your viewers are, that might be higher or lower. China, it's generally lower. And so here we listed like 2 cents to $1 per 1,000 views. So that's a pretty wide range. I would say the average around now is, let's say, 30 cents or say 20 to 30 cents US. So that might sound quite low compared to the US, especially if you're in the US where you might get $2 or $3. That is a lot lower. But actually, even on YouTube, if you're in India, Southeast Asia, you can get huge views, but the CPMs are actually lower than they are in China. So so don't think that it's necessarily that much worse. If you're really a global creator with a global audience, 30 cents CPM is actually pretty good. But then, as we mentioned already, brand deals are pretty good. China has been an innovator and a leader in the world, I think, in the social commerce, like integrating e-commerce directly into social platforms. You're seeing now on Instagram and also TikTok where you can directly link to products. China's been doing that for several years already. Talking a little bit more about live streaming, there's obviously a whole ecosystem around that, and I would say it's more developed in China than it would be even on, on Twitch or anywhere else like that. So gifting, donations, like directly integrating payments into live streaming has been established for quite a while, and there's a whole economy of people who do that. And obviously also live streaming e-commerce is also a thing. One thing I'll mention here is that although it is huge and although it is a great opportunity, it is one of the things that's also highly regulated if you're not based in China. So to do a live stream from outside of China actually is quite difficult. Like you have to apply for approval and it's closely monitored and whatnot. So I'll mention it, but it's basically not one of the things that we pitch to our creators because of the difficulties. As I mentioned, there's a lot of competition between the platforms. So one of the ways that they're vying for the best content is through different subsidy programs. So in this case, there's first of all, there's the CPM based subsidies, but then there's also like performance bonuses. So if you get to 100,000 subscribers, you might get a cash bonus. If you get one of the trending videos, you might get a cash bonus. If you sign up to a new platform, they might give you kind of a, if you jump through a certain number of hoops, okay, within the first 2 months, you post 2 videos a week for the first 8 weeks. You do this, you do that, you verify your account, you connect your partner program, application gets accepted, then you can qualify for a small subsidy. Usually they're in the range of, a few $100s. But if it's a big enough YouTuber coming in, sometimes those things can be larger. So if you're a 1 million plus subscriber YouTuber, it's, it might be hundreds or in the extreme case, like thousands of dollars for just this kind of signing bonus opportunity. And then there's even bigger things. So if your content is extremely good or it has performed quite well in China, the platforms will actually basically pay you to not post your videos anywhere else. So be exclusive to them. And this is where you start talking like real money, because now it's like, okay, if you really want me that badly, I could probably be successful on 5 of these other platforms. So what are you going to do to make it worth not taking those opportunities? So in this case, this is it's hard to predict which creators will get this opportunity, but when they do, it's obviously great, because not only are they getting this economic incentive, but then now the platform is incentivized to promote them even more, because they're paying them to be there. So, okay, we're going to make sure that we give them spotlights, and we're going to get them involved in all these programs. And then you get this sort of snowball effect, or I guess it's more of a cascade, where because they signed you, now they're promoting you, and now that they're promoting you, your views go up, which means you get more of those incentive bonuses, etc. And on top of that, now the brand deals are going to come because you're one of the top trending people. So, if you basically get that kind of thing, it's almost like, I don't want to say winning the lottery, but it's your lucky day for the next 12 months or 24 months, depending on how long those deals last. And so, yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm not even talking about, like music distribution, kind of these other things which are genre specific, but that's kind of the main ones that we touch on. Okay, so Jasper, should I go into this one now? Yeah, I guess why not? So especially, I don't know how many people are watching and what your backgrounds are, but I want to be realistic, and I also want to kind of temper your expectations on the opportunity. Certain things work better than others. Just because you have a big YouTube channel doesn't mean your stuff is going to work in China. And actually, in many ways, we don't even want, like, I don't want an Instagrammer with 10 million fans who post selfies all the time. Like, those kind of people aren't, if you're famous for being famous, that doesn't work in a market where no one knows you, right? So what we're focused on is content, and not just content, but content that is, universal or easy to localize or easy to sort of travel across the language and cultural barriers. So certain things just work. Music, everyone loves music. Dance is great. Also doesn't need to be subtitled. DIY experiment channels. You saw some in the sizzle reel that we played. Anime and animation, from Japan or elsewhere, is also very popular. People actually do like to see some, like, I don't want to say like things in English are much more difficult, but despite the difficulty in adding subtitles, comedic stuff generally works. Family content works. People like seeing kids' videos. Parents in China like to see their kids watch English content made for kids. So it's kind of a home run. And obviously, on that same vein, education is universal, science is universal, knowledge sharing, even if it's through subtitles, still works. Obviously, can also be dubbed if it needs to be. And then the kind of X factor is content that includes a Chinese element. And what I mean by that is, like, people in mainland China who maybe never had the chance to study overseas, they wonder what it's like if you did go study overseas, or if you, in this case, like international couples. So, for example, a Chinese man goes to study in Denmark and ends up marrying a Danish woman, and they start doing a vlog. People in China eat that kind of stuff up, because there's an element that they can relate to, and then something foreign that they might be interested in, but they sort of see it through the eyes of that. So that's one kind of aspect. There's also, like, we have one creator, Jamie Ju. You saw him in the trailer. He was the guy with all the rings on his forehead. He was playing a prank on his dad. People in China identify with his dad. He's basically half Australian, half Chinese. And whenever he pranks his dad, people in China love it, because they're like, "Oh, that guy looks exactly like my dad, and my dad would flip out if I ever did something like that." So it just really resonates with that audience. And then also you get, to be honest, and I'll actually embarrass myself here, like, Westerners or foreigners who are doing into Chinese culture, into Chinese things, speaking Chinese. Obviously, it's not for everyone, but in this case, if you do that, they also just enjoy it so much more. So in my case, because I've studied Chinese for many years, speak Chinese, I decided to start my own Bilibili channel. Actually, I took one of my YouTube channels and made a Bilibili version where I speak Chinese, and the version, and nobody cares about my stuff in YouTube, but in Bilibili it gets in some cases like 100 times more views. So just seeing a foreigner making the effort, and in this case, what it is I'm actually testing like drinks, local drinks. So if I'm drinking a mainland China brand that's like a beloved brand and doing a drink review, 100 times, if not 1,000 times more views within China, because that audience really cares about that stuff, and maybe on YouTube it's no big deal. So anyway, that's don't look up the channel. That's my firsthand knowledge in that case as well.
That was great, Rafi, and thank you so much for putting that all together, and for bringing one of your sponsors in as well. That was very, very good.
I don't get sponsored by them, unfortunately.
Okay, well, it was a good try. Unfortunately, at the beginning of your first slide, you broke up a little bit. Just want to confirm, you said there are around 800 million viewers every month in China. Was that a monthly, a weekly, or just total universe?
That's the audience size. So in other words, of the 1.3 billion people in China, 800 million of them consume digital video on some regular basis.
This is such a, I do say this a lot, but people need to remember that that's over twice the size of a market like the North America, and this is, the opportunity that exists is immense. However, as you're saying in that presentation, it really is about understanding local culture and language. You mentioned also that the platforms are actively looking for good international talent. But how important, and you did mention language, and we talked to Kurt a lot about language a couple of weeks ago, but how important is it that the creators, that the channels are talking in Chinese, or is subtitling enough?
It's really a catch-22. So in that they want this top global content, but if I'm a top YouTuber, I mean, Kurt's obviously an exception where he's, he could probably learn Chinese in a week if he wanted to. But, like if you're a full-time YouTuber learning a new language and taking the time to build up a new audience as a basic language speaker is quite difficult. I would say almost impossible. And it's almost not worth your time to like, I'm going to stop making YouTube videos for the next 6 months so I can cram intensive Chinese so that I can try to start to be a KOL in China. So I generally wouldn't recommend that. But that said, obviously it also depends on the content. So good dancing is good dancing. A good singer is a good singer. And then any effort you make to then engage with the audience, even if it's through subtitles, even if it's through an interpreter or whatever, it just takes things kind of to the next level. So even just having one of the characters in costume from Patty Cake's videos, as you saw in the sizzle reel, saying like Zoukai and Gambei and things like that, like speaking the language of that platform specifically, especially, really, really engages the fans. So we tell people at least just say ni hao and, 谢谢你的订阅 and things like that, which just means thanks for subscribing. Like try to pick up a few. So we really try to balance the time and the effort requirements for the creator. So, okay, do a welcome video, do 100,000 subscriber thank you video. Obviously, if there's a branded deal, worth the time to make the effort. But it's kind of like you have to hit a critical mass before it's worth it to stop making YouTube videos and spend the next 2 hours trying to speak Chinese at an elementary school level.
Cool. So we've got a few questions starting to come in, and if anyone has any questions for Rafi or for Patty Cake, please do put them in the comments, and we'll try and get to them. Francine, Rafi, and Evangeline are both asking, what is the name of your channel? We're going to take you global here, Rafi.
Okay. The YouTube channel is called the YouTube channel is called Obscure Cola, and the Chinese, the Bilibili version is Xiaoka de Xiqi Cola Pindao, which basically means Rafi's Strange Cola Channel. So If you can understand Chinese and you can find
Rafi's
it, good luck.
strange name
Otherwise,
as well.
yeah. So obscure cola,
Good
just
stuff.
obscure cola.
Look, I mean, this is fascinating building this story about China. We are going to come on to talk more about international creators going into China, but just again, just to finish setting the scene, what the local creators that are succeeding in China, the local Chinese creators in China, what kind of scale? You know, people get measured around the world by the number of subscribers they have or followers they have. What's the kind of scale of the big creators in China?
Well, you know, China is no exception as far as like huge numbers. I haven't looked at like a global comparison lately, but let's say on Douyin, for example, one of the top individual creators would be Chen He, who's an actor, is like 68 million followers. There's a couple kind of global sensations like Li Ziqi, who is also big on YouTube. I think she's over 10 million subscribers on YouTube. But in Douyin, I believe she's like 43 million followers. So it's at that level where, you know, if you're below 10 million, it's like you're just you're like a mid-level guy. So it's only the 20, 30 million, 60 million type level would be considered, I guess, A level. China's also, I guess it's the same as the West too. Like, you know, Will Smith can get on YouTube and get tens of millions of subscribers probably pretty fast. So in China, it's also still very dominated by, you know, celebrities. But as far as like grassroots creators, yeah, Li Ziqi. There's also Miss Ye, who I know has been a guest on for like YouTube Fan Fest, etc. So she's really also a global creator. 25 million fans on Douyin, I believe.
That's really cool. And then back to one more question for you before we move to meet the Patty Cake team, is tips for international creators going into China. You talked about things that they can do and should do, localizing language and what have you. What are the don'ts? What are the don't do's?
I would say, well, from our point of view as the company that sort of facilitates everything, the type of content, again, is critical. So if it's a 25-minute makeup vlog, for example, it's very difficult to localize. It's very expensive to localize. So you end up with this situation where, like, okay, if I had to produce your weekly videos, I have to put a price tag on how much it would cost to subtitle that. Like, you're going to dig a pretty deep hole translating your content before you even find out if it works in China. So, like, I wouldn't even go down that road. I would rather, from our point of view, we'd rather focus on the easy one. So obviously, like the nonverbal stuff, the YouTube dance channels, etc. Those ones are a lot easier and it's obviously a lot safer. But if you really, you know, if you're Kurt and you can learn Chinese and, you know, in between in between meals, then yeah, go for it. And that's, you know, that's definitely a do. Don't is to just expect that because you're popular on YouTube, you're going to obviously be popular everywhere else. That doesn't work.
That is brilliant. That last piece really is priceless advice, because we have seen many examples of international massive creators going into China and making that assumption and just not flipping over. Look, Rafi, it's been brilliant talking to you. We're going to you're gonna come back at the end. If anyone has any more questions for Rafi about the market, if you want Collab Asia to represent you, taking you into China, now's the time to ask. But Rafi, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to have Rafi back on the VidCon sofa shortly. But up next, we have coming in from the US, there we go, Tony and Lane. How are you, Tony and Lane? Welcome to VidCon Now Asia. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being so patient as well whilst we were talking to Rafi. We saw a little bit about Patty Cake in Rafi's video at the beginning, but tell us a little bit about who is Patty Cake, what do you do? And I'm going to frame it like this. And you're on your first date. What do you tell that first date that you guys do for a living?
Well, first, it's awesome to be here. We're pretty excited to do this, so thanks for having us. As far as what we have strange jobs, and we're very aware about that. So, what I describe to people in a very kind of jokingly manner, but it's the truth. I say I write princess videos for YouTube. Or princess musicals for YouTube is probably a better way to say it.
And I think I would tell people that. Sorry, I would say I tell people that I click buttons until things look and sound good.
It's true.
Fantastic. And two of the more unique answers I've ever had for that one. Before we go into patty cake, let's see the video. Let's see what it is that you really do. It's quite tremendous.
If you're sitting alone, don't you pick up the phone, 'cause there's a stranger on the other side, and things that go bump in the night. You hear a sound, don't go bumping around just for a second, it's too late, 'cause there's things that go bump in the night.
That's absolutely fantastic. You've totally earwormed me for the rest of the day. I'm going to be humming your songs. And look, this is very different than what might be considered as a more traditional YouTube channel or social, influencers and creators. Some very big production going on in there. Tell us, what's the story? What's the history of patty cake? Where did it all start, and how are you two involved?
Sure. Yeah, we started out as two performers singing in the same a cappella group in voice play. And we had all these ideas about making all these crazy videos that were a little bit outside of the group. So we said, hey, let's make a video. So the very first video that we kind of made just as a trial, we threw it up on YouTube. It was called Snow Spears. It was an unexpected musical where we kind of twisted the music and used the music of Britney Spears to tell the story of Snow White, and
as if the music we took the music of Britney Spears and reorchestrated it to make it feel like it had always been in Snow White.
Right. And we uploaded that to YouTube, and the very first video kind of got like a big jump. I think it got like 1 million views in just a few weeks. So we were like, oh. There's an audience for that. So ever since then, we've been writing our own music and creating videos, and now we're here.
But you two don't appear in the videos themselves, right? You're always behind the camera, or do you actually appear as well?
Sometimes we make little Alfred Hitchcock kind of cameos in very, 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 very small parts, but. We are definitely we're the writers, the producers, the directors. We do everything that you see. We create all the costumes, all of the casting, all of that we do.
So tell us, for people who don't know patty cake, outside of China, what's the kind? And we mentioned the way that people measure people is subscriber numbers and stuff like that. What kind of subscriber numbers have you got outside of China?
Sure. I think our biggest platform right now is YouTube, at least in the United States. And I think we're kind of nearing 400,000 subscribers on that. And we've been at this for about 3.5
years.
3.5 years now. So that's where we exist on YouTube.
Oh no, we're thrilled with that number.
Yeah, it's a great number. So let's obviously we're talking about China today.
Sure.
Let's tell everyone about your presence in China. How did it start? What are your numbers? Yeah, because it's quite a fascinating story.
It is a fascinating
It really
story.
is.
We actually didn't even know that our videos were on Bilibili, which is basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of like the same over there as YouTube is over here. So we didn't even know our videos were on there, and we have a Patreon channel, and a few of our patrons messaged us and said, "Hey, your video is over on Bilibili. You should go check it out." And we kind of just snuffed it off at first, and then they're like, "Hey,
no, really, you should see this.
You should go look." So we went and looked, and our videos had, I don't know, 3 or 4 million views, versus in the States, those videos maybe had 1 or 2 million views, and we went, huh?
Well, yeah, the first thing we're like, oh, there's clearly an audience for what we're doing in other places than the U.S., which is what every creator dreams of, is to create content that lives outside, that's so global and so universal in its message and its entertainment value that language perhaps doesn't play as big a factor when you're telling a compelling story. At least that's what we try to do with our music, is try to tell compelling stories that will resonate with people. So when you take away when you add a language barrier, that just becomes even more difficult. So we were elated that it had such a very dedicated, I would say, following, but without even our knowledge of it. So we went, oh, well, this is really neat.
Definitely.
It's really not something we ever set out to do. And the story gets a little bit more complicated too. So in addition to the videos that we were making, some of our original series were making its way to Bilibili. A TV show, The Sound, I believe it's called, used one of the songs in our series, and two of their contestants on the show actually performed the song, and with the video kind of behind them, which was very cool.
It was pretty cool.
You go, oh, that's neat that people like this that much, that people, when you're a contestant on a reality show, you pick kind of like the best of the best of the best, and we were flattered that one of our songs met that level of I don't even know what
stardom.
Yeah, sure. We were a little surprised. I will say that nobody really asked us, "Is this okay?" But at the end of the day, it is something that any writer, producer, director hopes for, is that you create content that appeals to a very wide demographic and can live outside of a specific place in the world, that it's so universal.
And after that, we kept getting emails that were suggesting, "Hey, we really love your videos. Can you please post them to Bilibili officially? We're learning English by watching your video."
That was like, oh, that's so cool.
So I think after we received those kind of emails, that's when we were talking to our team, and we said, "Hey, let's figure out how to do this." And that's when we met Rafi, and I guess the rest is history. But what's so cool to us is that we have almost 400,000 subscribers on YouTube, but we have almost 500,000 subscribers on Bilibili.
Which is just like the coolest thing ever. I don't know, like
it is so cool. And we've been on YouTube, like I said, for 3 or 4 years, and Bilibili, 8 months?
Maybe, like if that.
6 months. It's crazy.
So your presence in China, you're in New York. Your presence in China is bigger than your presence outside of China. How are you communicating with, and how are you building that Chinese audience?
Sure.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well, I would say we first started with Rafi, and we had kind of a lot of conversations about exactly, because like I said right from go, it's what any creator wants, is to have a fan base that is dedicated to what, or is really enjoying what you're doing. So when you find another group of that are as dedicated as another group, you go, okay, well, what can we give them that's just for them? You know what I mean? There's the TikToks, and then there's the Instagram, and YouTube, and all of that. But it's important for us to create content that lives, and we do, that lives just for Bilibili. So that was always something that we talked about immediately. That was one of the first conversations we had with Rafi, is what can we do as creators to make our Bilibili subscribers feel like they are important and they're getting things that are just for them because they are to us. So what can we do as creators to show them that? Yeah. So we do video. We've had many videos that we do and shoot that are just for them, that we don't do for our audience here in the US, that we create content that's exclusively just for them.
And I think maybe even to answer your question, even on the more basic and bare level, is that the way that we communicate them is with translators, and we work closely with them. I know one of the translator companies that we use is the Cupcake Subtitle Group, who works with Collab, and Collab has their people as well that also help translate things. But we'll go back and forth with certain things because it's music, and lots of things don't necessarily translate one-to-one from English to Mandarin.
Which is another reason that we as the creators and the writers and the directors we like to be involved, because when your work is being translated, you want to make sure that it's being translated the way that you intended it and the way that you wrote it. So even though there's a language barrier, the point that you're trying to make is still getting across. So we have a lot of conversations about our songs, specifically about when they're translated, that they're being translated correctly.
So thank you for that. We're going to bring Rafi back onto the VidCon Now Asia sofa. Hey Rafi, thank you very much for joining us again. How important, we talk about this localization and stuff, and it's fascinating that they've been translating the songs. So the songs are being sung in Chinese as well, or is it subtitles?
No. So basically, we're taking the the English version, and then we're subtitling everything. As you saw in the sizzle reel, like there's some unique features on these China platforms. One of them is like those comments that you see scrolling across. Those are called bullet comments. That's actually a very dynamic, and it's not unique to Bilibili, but it's one of the things that is very big in China. And that's actually kind of a two-way street. So fans can contribute comments that appear on screen at specific times, so they're sort of time-stamped. So there's actually there's like a debate going on about what does that particular idiom mean and things like that. And so the feedback loop that goes back to Tony and Lane through these super fans from China is actually literally they'll say oh, we didn't understand, or we think that you could translate this particular lyric this way, and so they'll sort of correct us, and we work with those super fan group. And then one of the other nice things about Bilibili is you can actually update your video file after it's been posted. So in other words, if we screwed up on a subtitle, you can actually go back and replace the video, which obviously you can't do on YouTube in the same way. So it actually is very friendly for this kind of evolving situation, especially when it comes to lyrics. You're never going to translate it the way that's going to make everyone happy, but we can sort of come to some eventual evolution that is the best case scenario.
So look, this is fascinating. We're running a little bit over time, but we have a couple of questions that have come in. One is now we have a bit of a superstar manager watching. I think he's in LA at the moment. So Rob McDermott, and just so you're aware, Rob is Linkin Park's original manager. He asks, what is the best and simplest way to get my Western music artists spread across all Chinese platforms? How can new international artists get a foothold?
Well, good to see Rob. It's been a long time since the last, I think, All That Matters, maybe 5 years ago, I think we bumped into him. But yeah, very good question. So best and simplest is not necessarily the same thing. So the best way would be, teach them how to all speak Mandarin. That would be one way to do it. Simplest is, I would say, like getting onto the platforms is relatively simple in that like a company like ours can do that. We can set up an account on almost every platform now. That should be fine for music artists, for example, unless you're doing something like gangster rap or something. But generally, like almost all genres are okay. And so that part is handled. We can actually do music distribution as well. It's relatively clear now. Like piracy in China is actually cleaned up as these, like 10-cent music and stuff like that. They've sort of revolutionized the music market and taken it in new directions, just like on Spotify. So that's now relatively simple. Getting a foothold, again, like, yeah, if you could speak Chinese, that would be great. If you could do like a cover of a popular Chinese, like a famous Chinese song, that would definitely help. Collaborating with a Chinese artist, also good. One of the other things in our sizzle reel that you saw was actually the Jabberwockies, the dance team, the guys with the masks. One of the videos, we didn't have the sound in it, but they were actually doing a dance to a song by Lei Zhang, who's a Taiwan-based singer. And that was huge, both on their YouTube channel, but also obviously their Bilibili channel too. So it's not just, oh, we really like their dancing. It's like, oh, now they're dancing to this popular Chinese language artist that we all love. So those things, those kind of collabos, etc., almost as surefire.
So you mentioned collaborations, and obviously it's in the company name, but collaborations are a very important part of success outside of China. How important is the concept of collaborating in China? And would you recommend overseas creators working with local Chinese creators?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, now in the age of COVID, travel is a bit of an issue. That impacts a lot of stuff like, for a band, right? You can't do a club tour in China right now. So I guess you have to be creative, and digital is a great way to sort of get around those barriers, but it does take some of the options off the table. So you can't do a face-to-face collaboration. We have one dance creator, which is actually interesting. It's actually a Korean team, and one of them went to study overseas, and the other one is still in Korea. And they have managed, through the power of technology, to still do dance videos together. So you can get creative, like with green screens and stuff like that. If I didn't tell you that they weren't in the same country, you might not even know. So there are ways around that, but definitely I would recommend it, for Chinese artists wanting to go out as well.
Fantastic. Well, look, we have some more questions coming in from Mary and Francine and some other people as well. Now, our next session is also going to be about international creators making it in Asia. We have Jeremy Jauncey and Ivy Wong, so we can post more questions about China as we get there. But listen, Rafi and Tony and Lane, thank you so much for joining us today. I've written some notes just to summarize really what we've talked about today. Obviously, it sounds easy, but being relevant is really important. There are 800 million potential viewers out there, so you need to talk in their language. There are brand deals that are out there that actually could be bigger than the US. The platforms want you. If you're a big international artist, they want you, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee success. You have to work at it, you have to have a strategy, and you probably have to have an agency like Collab Asia to help you along the way and to help you localize your content. But having a strategy and understanding that local culture is probably the most important part of it. The way we like to say that is, if you're in the UK, US, Australia, English-speaking territories, when was the last time you listened to a Chinese album or a Chinese record? Then that hopefully sets the scene for you as to how to be relevant in that local market. So a lot of that has come through today. So pleased that Rafi, Tony, and Lane, you could join us today. Tony and Lane are all the way over in New York. Rafi all the way up in Hong Kong. But thank you so much to everyone else who's joined and watched today. Any feedback, or if there are any topics or people you would like us to interview at VidCon Now Asia, you can get me at @JasperDonat, very easy. We're always interested to hear more feedback, and we're always interested to hear more ideas. So with that, thank you so much to Rafi, thank you to Tony, thank you to Lane. Have a great day and have a great evening.